Good evening. Welcome to Mangard Rovers Game Week 11 review. My name's Sean. I'm joined as ever with Phil and Nathan, and we're going to talk everything that's happened over the weekend with Premiership this weekend. How are you doing both? You okay? You both good?
Oh, yes, very well, thank you.
We've
Very
had
good.
a really interesting weekend of football. Lots of results to talk about. Lots of stuff to digest. Obviously, there's a title race that's heating up a little bit. Arsenal dropped a couple of points. Chelsea strong. Liverpool giving up and Man City rolling on. So let's get into it. Start with Spurs, Man United, 2-2 it finished. Phil, you had it 3-2 Man United, finished
Well,
two apiece, so close. Nathan, you had it 1-0, but Phil, take us through it. What did you see? What did you like? Because you want to touch on anything in
do
particular.
you know it was a cracking way to start the weekend, wasn't it? It was everything we thought it probably would be with these two teams. Nobody can defend. Everybody's got a little bit of flair. Not a great deal of team organisation structure. Probably two managers who are wondering what on earth they're putting out on the pitch, and probably got about as much idea as we have, to be honest. So it was a pretty hectic start to the weekend. Like I say, it's both teams' kind of frailties at the back were exposed again, to be honest, as well as the fact that both teams can get a goal out of nothing when you think they're dead and buried. So it was a real, because it had no interest particularly in either team, it was a real thriller, to be honest, to start the weekend, wasn't it? I mean, Mbuemo's in great form. I think we've touched on a couple of times, like fantasy football, clutch pick right now at the minute, playing great, and he's living up to some of his potential, which is good for him. Spurs, defending again, sometimes they look absolutely rock solid, like a couple of weeks ago with the Van de Ven game, and then this weekend just looked like they're all at sea again. United can't defend. They do look dangerous at matches going forward. And they're definitely improving, or have improved from last season. They're certainly understanding the system a bit better, but they're still so lacking in so many areas in terms of just concentration and structure. Special shout out to Richarlison did his usual thing, running off, taking his shirt off like he won the game, to then fail to win the game again. You've always got to love that man. He's a great meme waiting to happen, isn't he? But I think Delight's had a pretty decent start to the season. To be honest, for Man United, he's been pretty consistent, and he pops up with a header at the back post, nicking Harry Maguire's mantle as the game saver. So I mean, absolute ding dong game. Really good advert for Premiership football. I mean, anyone who wants to claim the Premier League's boring, you just need these two to play each other a few more times in the season. It'd fade away, wouldn't it? But say it kind of highlighted what we know. Both teams flashes of brilliance. Both teams as leaky as a sieve, and both teams great entertainment if you're neutral. But you'll end up looking like me if you're a Spurs or a Man United fan. I mean, you've just got no chance, have you? It just they must be at their wits' end when now they see such wonderful skill at one end of the pitch and such shambolic nonsense at the other. So really good start to the weekend. Enjoyed it a lot, and yeah, it was a good start. Just a shame Man United couldn't get that extra goal for my extra points, really. But you're going to tell me you predicted a draw now, aren't you? But yeah,
Oh.
it was a really good weekend. So I enjoyed it. Okay.
Nathan, what did you think? Did you watch much of it? Did you see a lot of it?
Yeah, I've seen some of the highlights. I think if you're Man United, you're incredibly frustrated. Obviously, you're going 1-0 up, and then you can see two late goals. You think that's it, and then they show a bit of spirit, don't they? At the end, I mean, they get the last minute equaliser. I mean, the defending's a bit poor for the header, if I'm being completely honest. The Richarlison goal got a bit of a deflection, I think, doesn't he? Because when I first seen it, I thought, the keepers should have done better there. But then when you see it deflects a little bit. So yeah, it was like Phil says, two teams that really can't defend at the minute, very inconsistent in how they're playing. I think Man United are showing slight improvements. I mean, where they are in the table at the minute shows you that they are improving. Tottenham as well, but they just need to get that consistency of that balance of just shipping goals in and just trying to pick up victories. So yeah, it was a great game for the neutral. It was a great game for Villa because obviously we're close to them in the table, so we didn't want either team to win. So but again, if you're Spurs, you're really frustrated, aren't you? You know, you take the lead in the 91st, 92nd minute. You've got to see it out.
Yeah.
You can't concede the 96th minute equaliser, and I think that's what will frustrate Thomas Frank. But if you're Ruben Amorim, you're happy because the team's fighting right until the end. Sort of the spirit of the old Man United, go right to the end of the whistle. So yeah, I ain't saying it's going to start to click, but Man United are showing signs of getting better. So yeah, they need to move on to obviously now after the international break. Both teams will be trying to get a win. So, but incredibly entertaining for the opening game at 12:30.
Yeah, Tottenham sat in fifth now, and Man United in seventh, both on 18 points. It's just a goal difference that's separating them now. We've obviously seen a bit of a change from last season. Obviously both starting to fire a little bit, and we're starting to see a little bit of a style of play from both teams now.
That's
So
that
yeah,
mediocre.
yes, yeah, still both Spurs, yeah. But do we regard both Tottenham and Man United now? Are they back to where they should be in terms of results, performances, or do we still expect a bit of a drop off from them, Phil?
They're doing better, but sorry, they're doing better, but I don't believe that they're going to be in any sort of European battle as it stands because I think they're too inconsistent. Now, obviously, there's a lot to go till the end of the season, but the way that they both keep shipping goals in is worrying for me because they show one week when they can defend and another week when they can't, and that's for a team that wants to challenge for Europe isn't that the team needs to be more consistent. So for me personally, as it stands, I don't see them being. I know again I'll go against my predictions because I think I predicted Man United about 6th or 7th. I can't remember, but if you, like I said to you, just they are improving because the table tells you that they are. So, but there's still a long way to go. So,
How about you, Phil? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Spurs are there or thereabouts to where they should be. And for me, I know there's a lot of talk of Big Six and stuff like that. Fundamentally, I think there's that echelon of teams that have won the Premier League. Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Man United, and Chelsea, who really should be the top five. I think if you're Man United, if I'm looking at it, I go look. The only way you're accepting where you are is if you're accepting your standards have dropped. You've got to find a way. It's like when Arteta took over at Arsenal. We knew eighth wasn't good enough. We had to look past families and get back to where we've been. That's where Man United need to be. It's not good enough to be happy to draw in the last minute of overtime with Tottenham. It's just not. You should remember Alex Ferguson's famous speech. It's only Tottenham boys. That was his speech at half time, wasn't it? Like your standards have dropped now if you're happy with equalising in the 96th minute. Like it's just not good enough, and they've got no excuse this season. Spurs, fair play. They've got Champions League football. They've got a distraction midweek football. Man United, stunk by Grimsby. They're not in Europe. They've got all the time in the world on the training pitch. At the end of the day, if they don't, and I think I predicted about fifth. I think when we did our predictions because of the fact they didn't have European football, and I think they've got no excuse this season because if Amarim's never going to get his system across. It's going to be this season because he's got bloody loads of time on the training pitch. So if he doesn't do it this season, he's never ever going to have enough time to do it in a normal season. So Man United, a lot more work to do if you're going to talk about where Manchester United should be. For me, Tottenham are where roughly they should be. I know you two don't necessarily like my phraseology, but for me, you've got your Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle, those teams who are clearly better than mid-table, but aren't quite, in my opinion, aren't quite at the squad level of those teams who won the league. And at the minute, I'd say Man United drop down into that bracket. But I think that's the next bracket of sort of teams who are contenders in waiting. Who are kind of waiting to push into that on a more regular basis and cement those places effectively. The Premiership's European teams, really. I think they're the sort of next echelon of teams and waiting for that. So, a huge improvement from Spurs, from both of them from last season, I suppose. But then you'd only argue, well, look at how congested the table is. Look at, for example, I'll come on to one of your boys, Asher. I'm like, are they doing better or are other teams doing worse? I think it's probably a mixture of the two. I still think you look at results and you go, Tottenham, Man United should be doing better. Certainly, Man United should be doing better than that. And Spurs, I don't know, their inconsistency. Both of them, that's an issue of consistency. And you'd want to see, forget league table, I guess you'd want to see them both, if you're a fan, even consistency this season. And I think they're both a long way from each other at the minute. So, yeah.
Yeah, there is a long way to go still, and yeah, there's definitely been an improvement across both squads. To be fair, Nathan, you scored the first point this weekend. You predicted a 1-0 win for Everton. Everton won 2-0 at Fulham. Phil, you had it one apiece. I had it two apiece. Nathan, yeah, let's go.
yeah. So, 2 goals either side of the half for Everton. I think they've got the job done, didn't they? I don't think it was particularly a brilliant game for the neutral. But if you're an Everton fan, you're really happy with the result. I think if you're a Fulham fan, you were disappointed again because it's the inconsistency, and you know there's two teams that are very similar in the table. But Everton, for me, and I've said this, are right where they are, where I thought they would be. They're not sort of in the top out half, but they're sort of the top half of the bottom half, if that makes sense. So they got the result, and I think it was a result that gets them, further up the table. And Fulham just, for me, too inconsistent. Like, and last season they were very good, and this season they don't seem to be at the races, do they? So yeah, it was a great win for Everton, and I think Fulham disappointing. There's not much more I can add to that, really.
Right, so Phil, you had it as one all draw.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't think there was that much in the game, to be honest. You look at the goals; they weren't exactly worldies, were they? Like, so, I think the two teams. I still think are closely matched. I think one of those where one team took their chances. You got a scrappy goal from the corner, didn't you? Um, it just, like I say, one team took their chances and one team didn't. And that's the difference. Like Nathan said it a few times this season. It's about taking your chances when they come up. And I think Fulham. You know, we slightly different opinion there. I think they've been quite consistent in performance, but like you say, completely lacking in terms of consistency of result. And I think we saw that Everton have been pretty solid at home this season. So I know we called it a draw. I think we said it could maybe go either way. You could see any result out of that game, and obviously Everton edged it in the end. But nothing there that convinces you that either team is going to be seeing top half football this season. I think they're both. I think Everton are safe from any conversation of relegation. Fulham just need to be a little bit careful. I think we don't get drawn back into it, but I think they'll both be all right going forward. But yeah, it was so again, I know I've used the phrase a couple of times. It's just a sort of standard mid-table game, really, and yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Fulham, I've watched a few of the Fulham games this season so far, and I've said it before. They're not playing that badly, as in, like they give Arsenal a good game, they give us a good game, and they were just unlucky in the end in them performances. To be fair, and yeah, it must be really frustrating to be a Fulham fan, seeing your team play half decent and not get over the line and concede one soft goal and then obviously another to kill the game off. So comfortable win for Everton. Poor again by Fulham. I think Fulham. I sympathise a lot with Fulham. I think because I put us in the same bracket as Fulham. Frustrating to watch. Really frustrating to watch. Not getting the results you should get. Not taking chances. Not scoring the goals when the opportunities arise. It's frustrating. So I get it. But yeah, Everton sat nicely in the table about 13th, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
13th, and Fulham sat 15th, mid-table, along with us, mid-table
they
14th.
need to
So
be careful for them though, Sean. Like Phil said, they need to be careful. They don't find themselves getting dragged in. Obviously, we'll talk about it next, but there's teams around them that are starting to pick up results. So
absolutely,
that's that's
absolutely,
that's the worrying thing. If you follow, if you don't start turning some of these poor performances into good ones and getting victories.
yeah. Well, let's move on to the next one. We had West Ham Burnley. It finished 3-2. Nathan, you had 2-1. Phil, you had 2-1. I had 2-0. None of us got the correct result, but we all did predict a West Ham win. Um, yeah, Phil, did you see much of the game? Did you see the highlights? Any positives from West Ham?
Yeah, I've seen the goal. I think you got to say to West Ham, Nuno might not have, had that immediate sort of first game or two bounce, but I mean, they had a couple of tough games when he first came in, didn't they? I think you're seeing what Nuno does. I mean, he's a bit like Sean Dyche, and there's a few managers who float around. You know what you're going to get. They're going to sort the organisation out and kind of look at patterns of play and bring that sort of team environment, team feel sort of back to the club. That's exactly what he's doing. We all knew West Ham's players didn't go from being, they did achieve European glory only 2 years ago with David Moyes. I know it's only the Tin Pot Cup, but they still won the cup. And you don't go from that to being shite overnight, do you? Like, so I think they suffered from Kudos leaving, and he was a lot of creativity from last season. And obviously Graham Potter's, rudderless leadership for a period of time. But I think Nuno's doing what we all, I guess, assumed Nuno would do when he first got appointed, which is They look organised. They look solid. They've got fight in there. Burnley might rue a few missed chances, maybe, and maybe felt like they deserved a little bit more out of the game. But like I say again, Nathan said a few times for us, if you don't take your chances, you don't get away with it, and that's the difference between coming to the Championship and performing in the Premier League. And Burnley are giving it a great go, but at the minute they're just key moments in matches where they're just falling short. You saw it against Man United, you saw it against Liverpool, and this weekend they've not taken their chances either. So I think West Ham looking far, far better under Nuno than they have all season. To the point where you're probably thinking, yeah, if it carries on, West Ham will be fine. And Burnley, a bit like I touched on with Fulham, there's been some good performances in there, but when you look at results, you're kind of thinking maybe you do need to look over your shoulder a little bit and just think about how and where you're picking your points up. But yeah, really, really positive. West again. The irony being, I don't know if you saw it in the news, ridiculous protests from West Ham again just before the game. West Ham fans, sorry, just before the game. Again, you can moan all you want. What did you expect to happen when you demanded the club sacked the European winning manager? I don't know what you were expecting. Like there's some ridiculous idea that West Ham should be in the top four. Like get a grip. Like it's not going to happen. And they're not there. They've got other funding. So the protests, they just meant to laughable, really, because Nuno's had a good couple of results going into the international break, and really, as a West Ham fan, I don't know, I'm neutral, but as a West Ham fan, you should be bloody bouncing going into the international break. You kind of look like you've turned the corner,
Two good wins,
and
yeah.
yeah, and all right, there's international break. Some players will go for international duty, but Nuno will have others on the training pitch now for a week or so, and I think West Ham will keep going and keep the European endeavour. So I think it looks like West Ham might have turned a corner really. So good signs West Ham, Burnley. Say they just need to get their head around this change from Championship to Premiership, and like Nathan says, just start taking the chances. Really, match on 5 goals is obviously it's we won where it's a thriller, isn't it? But yeah, we're very pleased as a West Ham. I think should be.
Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, echoing what Phil says, I think if a manager like Nuno, you are going to see a reaction sooner or later. And then West Ham do have some very good players. I know they lost a couple of decent ones in the summer. Obviously, Kudus being the main one. Well, they took the chances. I mean, I think it was a bit harsh on Burnley. I think they were maybe the suggest they were the better team, more chances on target. They had more passes. I go back to the point again. We've both said you've got to take your chances when you get them, and I think if you switch off at second in the Premier League, you get punished. It doesn't matter which team. And I think for the second goal, I think it's the switch off for Souček's goal, and the same again for Walker Peters. And the West Ham goalie makes a bit of an howler for their second goal, I believe, for Burnley, but obviously too little, too late in the 97th minute. So if you're West Ham, you're buzzing because it's a second win in a row. Something that they need, and it's something that gets them sort of not out of the relegation zone yet, but it gets them sort of level with the rest of the pack that have been struggling for the last few weeks. So, I believe West Ham will still be okay. I think Nuno has got them playing some really good football. Burnley, we thought that we're playing decent, but they're just starting that little bit of a decline, aren't they? Now where you can see it's just not the scoring, but the conceding, and that's the concerning thing. So, like they scored 2 goals away from home. You think that should get you a minute, should get you at least a draw, and then obviously they lose the game 3-2. So they'll have to regroup after the international break, Burnley, and go again. So, and then obviously for West Ham, they want more of the same, don't they? Another win, get them further up that table.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think West Ham will eventually turn that corner. And Nuno, obviously, the effect he'll bring. You are starting to see glimpses of what West Ham can be. And but conceding 2 goals, I think, Burnley, again, must be frustrated scoring 2 away and not coming away with anything. Was frustrated. West Ham and Burnley both on 10 points, 11 games played. Not much in it really when it comes to the goal tally with them two. So that Burnley have scored 14, West Ham have scored 13, both conceded 23. Sorry, no, Burnley conceded 22, West Ham have conceded 23. So there's not much in it there as well. So you'd look at the team Nuno's got, and you'd expect them to start crawling their way up the table a little bit and a bit more pressure being put on Burnley. Um, oh yeah, 3-2 West Ham. Phil, we've got to go there. We've got to go Sunderland, Arsenal, finish 2-2. We all predicted Arsenal to win. Nathan, you had it 1-0. Phil 2-0. Myself 2-0. We've got to go to you for this one. Let's break it down.
I think I think it was a really good game. I think we know that Sunderland have turned their home form into a bit of a fortress already. They're doing everything we've said that Burnley and Leeds need to do in terms of they're taking an opportunity. And unfortunately, I think Arsenal. We made it very easy for them in the first half. I don't think there was a great deal of the Arsenal we've seen over the past 8 games in there. So we made it far too easy to play against in the first half, and if they capitalised on that, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to lose an eight game clean sheet record, I mean, there's not a bad goal to lose it to, is it? I mean, it was a pretty thunderous finish from a centre back, and pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Disappointing to concede. It was, I say, if you're going to concede, would I'd rather that than the second goal. Second half, we looked much more like ourselves. Created an awful lot. Could have easily scored another 2 or 3 on top of what we scored. But as Nathan said, and we've touched on before, you've got to take your chances. Didn't, probably should have done, take at least 1, if not 2 more. Saka should score on his left foot. But you leave the door open, don't you? And I'd be honest, I was saying to watching it next to a fellow Arsenal fan, just saying, it's one of those where I know we've got this clean sheet record, but still as an Arsenal fan, with only 1 goal in it in the last 10 or 15, I still feel as nervous as I ever did. And unfortunately, for once, I was proved right, and it's a pretty sloppy goal to concede. But then again, you can hardly criticise the defenders when they've been absolutely impeccable for the last 8 matches. It's not a bad I say too much, even though it's disappointing it's happened in 1 game. And at the end of the day, it's a point gained in it, and it's not, it's disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. I think when you look at what the gap was coming out of the first international breaks and second, we've increased the gap over Man City, we've increased the gap over Chelsea, we've increased the gap over Liverpool. So I think there's people, as ever, in these, we're all looking for this clickbait society headlines out. But I think when you actually put balance to it, like I say, we've, over the course of these last few weeks since the last international break, we've increased our lead at the top. Would we rather it was 6 points over 4? Of course we would. But do you know what? Like I said, Sunderland are playing really, really well. I think it was quite telling. Arteta's. I don't know if you saw Arteta's post match. Obviously, even as an Arsenal fan, sometimes I get a bit disappointed when he looks to make excuses about losses. But I think he held his hands up and praised Sunderland the way they played. They made it really hard. They carried on fighting to the end. And like I said, on another day, Raya stays on his line and saves that pretty easily, or Gabriel wins the ball, or we take one of our other chances, and it's another win on the board. So probably the really disappointing thing was the first half. I think that the first half was just a poor display. But we can take the usual positive. Declan Rice was his usual self. Zubimendi had an unbelievable game, and again he hit the bar, and Weasley hit the bar and gone in. So I'm not at all disappointed with the second half. I guess overall, I'm not too disappointed with the whole match. The result was disappointing, and the first half was better. But like I said, we knew Sunderland were going to fight. You can't win every game in the Premier League; it's not possible. I think the doom mongers, like I say, people just looking for a headline, and a lot of people are. Let's face it, you'd still have every single fan in the Premier League would swap places with Arsenal and want to be 4 points clear coming into the second international break. So I think people just looking to chip away at the fact that I go back to, I said to a friend of mine the other week, you know what I mean? We might not win the league. We might not win anything, but right here, right now, we're top of the league, and I'm going to enjoy the moment. We're still top of the league. We're going international break, top of the league. We've got an unbelievably difficult week coming out of the international break. But you look at the 5 or 6 players we've got coming back over the international break, and they're all attacking options. They're all going to buff our ability to change it up, to play different patterns of play, to score goals. So this was always something that I looked at as a really tricky match because ironically, despite the squad depth, we had a lot of players out, and we knew there were a lot of players coming back from the international break. So this was always a potential banana skin because of the players out. And unfortunately for us, Sunderland played their role to perfection. They played the foil. They didn't show any fear. They came at us, and do you know what? for all, yes, it's my team on the receiving end this time. I love what Sunderland are doing. They're giving it a go. They're showing no fear. They're demonstrating that if you invest well and you're committed and you organise yourselves, then the gap between this myth of gap between Championship and Premiership is a myth. It's about each individual team being organised and working out how they're going to become and stay in the Premier League. And still a long way to go for Sunderland. Yeah, obviously they've not hit the points tally they need to hit to guarantee safety, but they're halfway there in a third of the season. So they're doing really well. Can't be anything but happy for him, obviously, because players like Xhaka are there, and obviously, as an Arsenal fan, still got a huge soft spot for him. So there are worse ways to drop points. And at the end of the day, I'd rather drop points to a Sunderland than to Tottenham. So that might happen in a week or two's time. But like I say, disappointing result. But I think when you look at the block of 9 games as a block of 9 games, 8 wins out of 9, concede 2 goals in 9 games. I'm not too unhappy with that. Disappointed to drop points, but I think I've said to you boys before, I'll take that. For the first time in 9 games, I'm disappointed with drop points, but I'm still sat clear at the top. So yeah, and I don't think, as I said, second half performance was much more like what I'd have wanted. So it was a good game. As much as the last sort of 30 seconds to 2 minutes hurt. Other than that, I enjoyed the game. I think it was a really honestly played, enjoyable sort of old-fashioned Premiership encounter, and in spite of the fact everyone grumbles at Arsenal being boring, I think it was anything other than boring. So it was a good game. We take the point, we march on, and for all you Spurs fans out there, we're still looking down on you.
To be fair, it was a great watch. It were a really entertaining watch. To be fair, I sat and watched all of it. It was a really entertaining game. To be fair, and credit where it's due. Sunderland performed really well. Um, Later on in the game, Arsenal brought Mascara on to tighten up the defence. It didn't quite work out that way. And yeah, Arsenal conceded a late equaliser. Nathan, did you see much of the game? Did you watch it? What are your thoughts on this one?
I've seen the first half. It's a cracking first goal, isn't it? Is it Ballard? Ballard. I think as he goes into the box, the momentum takes it with him. He unleashes an unstoppable finish, and like Phil says, if you're going to concede a goal, it's going to take something special, isn't it? So, and it was a good goal. I think the momentum then shifts when obviously Arsenal equalise, and then Trossard comes with an absolute rocket, doesn't he? I mean, brilliant goal. And you're thinking from there that Arsenal should see the game out, shouldn't they? Like, I know they've got the attacking prowess of Sunderland, and the home form and that, but we've seen Arsenal be that ruthless and dominant this season, where they would have seen that game out, and then they concede a 91st minute equaliser. So if you're Mikel Arteta, you're incredibly frustrated because you think that you've got 3 points and then you end up with one. You don't lose the game. That's the positive. And like Phil says, you haven't lost the game, but you've just conceded 2 against Sunderland, which fair play to Sunderland. They're doing everything right. They're going at teams. They're having a go. They're being brave. The home form's carrying them through, and to the away, they're playing well. To be fair, and the points tally that they've got now is halfway there with the third of the season gone. So it's looking really positive for Sunderland. I think the key for me now, though, is Sunderland have got to carry on with the momentum, because you're only ever 2 or 3 results away from slipping down that table when other teams are picking results up. So as well as Sunderland are doing, they. What you would want to see them do now is maintain that consistency and make sure that they are picking up a win or getting a draw, and getting to that magical 40-point mark. So to back Phil's point, Arsenal missing a lot of players. So is a 2-2 result away from home against a team that's in form. You can look at it that way. But hopefully Arsenal get players back after the international break, and then they can carry on where they left off. So, but yeah, Arsenal are still 4 points clear, so they're doing all right. Like I said, they're not in any immediate danger of being caught at the minute. But I think they're just a little bit frustrated of being 2-1 up and conceding in the 91st minute.
Alright, okay. Yeah. Great game, good watch. And like I said, there was some stand up. Xhaka for me had a great game. He was like a man possessed. He was everywhere. He was like, yeah, he had a great game. Ballard, again, great goal. Yeah, I think he got the assist as well, I believe, later on. So a great performance from him. Ex-Arsenal lad, I believe, as well. He was in the academy when he was younger. So
Yeah.
what a great turnout for him to do what he did this weekend. Well, let's go back to the title race. Chelsea. 3, Wolves nil. Now Chelsea, we've talked a lot about Chelsea this season, especially the inconsistency with Chelsea this season. So I'm going to put it to you, Phil. If Chelsea start being consistent, are they a threat towards you guys sat top of the table?
Well, obviously, the key over any 38 games is all consistency, isn't it? Right. So if they start being consistent, then they're going to be in amongst the teams at the top, because I think that's when you start over that, and that's why you always hear and we always say, forget the league until 10 games, 15 games in, because that's when consistency starts to level out. And before that, you've got spikes in form that carry teams through and position them in the league. But do I think that Chelsea have any chance of being as consistent as Arsenal and Manchester City over the course of 38 games? And even Liverpool, to be fair, I know they're going through a wobble, but I think it's just sooner or later Slot needs to realise he needs to look at going back to basics from last season. But I don't think Chelsea are positioned to have that level of consistency. I still think the team is too young. I think there is, you look at the experience in that Manchester City squad and the experience in the side and the experience in the dugout. You look at the hard-earned experience of Arsenal over the last few years of missing out by second, and again that hard-fought experience in the team, in the squad, in the dugout. And Chelsea don't have it. They don't. They have experience of cup victories, and do I think Chelsea are a significantly better version of a cup team than a Man United or a Tottenham? Yes, I do. But I just think they've got inexperience and youth in a team that where they need more experience, I think, to be consistent over 38 games. So if they could get the consistency, they'll be a threat, because any team that can consistently grind out results and grind out points is going to be at the top. And I don't think anyone's running away with this league 10 or 15 points clear this season. But I don't think Chelsea will be consistent over 38 games. I know they've got Cole Palmer to come back, but I still think they've got a dodgy result in there. I still think if you said to me, and I know they did win against Liverpool, but do I look at Chelsea going into matches against Manchester City, against Arsenal, even now, the return match at Anfield, do I think Chelsea go in as favourites against those teams? No, I don't. I think they go in as if they can get. There's no one would be shocked if they got a result, but no one actually goes in expecting them to get a result, because I think they think those three teams are better. And I think in between that, your likes of your Villas and your Newcastles and your Spurs have all got the potential to claw points off. As of Man United, have all got the potential to claw points off of Chelsea. So I don't think they'll get the consistency that you would need to be challenging those top two or three teams. Well, any team that can get a level of consistency is really going to put themselves in the mix, because I think Chelsea have shown enough that you would say they're probably the right place in the division. But other than Liverpool's wobble, I think in that top four, I think we all sort of predicted Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea in varying orders as the top four. So I do think they're up there as the best of the rest. And I think they'll have more than enough to get champion, regardless of the actual Champions League. They'll more than just be back in the Champions League spots this season.
Yeah.
Looking at what we've seen from their contenders, and you would say their challenges should be. I'll put it this way: what I would say is, I would say this season their challenges for the Champions League spot would have been before kickoff. Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham, and Man United. And I think Chelsea have shown more than enough that you would say, you know what, they're better than those four teams this season. So I think that's what Chelsea have shown.
Yeah.
But I don't think over the next 20 odd games they're going to stick with Manchester City and Arsenal. I just don't think they will. But if they do, then yes, they'll very much be in the mix and be a threat. But I can't see them. Can't see it. But it was an impressive. I nearly said then it was another impressive win, but it wasn't. Everybody beats Wolves, so you know what I mean. You're in your head now. You're sort of looking every week, who's got the charity match against Wolves, like who's got the easy win. Like he's where you're looking now, and if someone drops points against Wolves, you'd be more critical of them than praising Wolves. So they did what they needed to do, but I don't think that's any sign of whether or not they're going to kick on and show better things this season. Because again, I think you look at that congestion between fourth and about ninth. With like 1 point in it.
Nothing in it.
So,
Nothing in it at
so I,
all.
so yeah, I don't think it's as a massive deal to say you just start the top balance, because I still think everybody else could overtake. If you lose, like Nathan said, if you lose next week or the week after next, sorry, and 2, 3 teams win, suddenly you're back down to 6th or 7th again, and we're having a different conversation. But I do think Chelsea have shown they'll they'll be on Man City and Arsenal's coattails over the course of the season. I do think they're playing better than last season, but I still don't think they have enough experience to win the league. So
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. You correctly predicted the result, Phil. You had 3-0 down. So 4 points to yourself for that one. So yeah, strong 4 points. Nathan, you had it 4-0, as did I. We both had 4-0. Was close to being 4-0 on a few occasions late on in the second half. So I think we're a bit little unlucky there. But is there any hope, Nathan, for the Wolves fans at all, or are we all resigned to the fact that we think Wolves are going to go down, even though Rob Edwards is going to come in from Middlesbrough now? Is that going to have any effect?
I don't think Houdini himself could save Wolves, if I'm being completely honest. Um, they're just terribly poor, aren't they? 11 games, no, they haven't won. They didn't get any shots on target against Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea go in at 0-0 with the going 0-0 at half time. That's probably the only positive you can probably take from the game. Second half, they fold like a deck of cards, don't they? So they are in serious trouble. I'll repeat myself for the last 2 weeks. I will be very surprised that come May they will be a Premier League team. I think Rob Edwards maybe make a minute. You may see a little bit of a reaction in terms of better performances. Currently, if you listen to all the media outlets, they are going to back him in January. But let's be honest, who's going to want to go to a team bottom of the table? Unless you're a player in Europe that wants to use it as a stepping stone to sort of give yourself a good account for the end of the season, and we see players do it. You're not going there, are you? Even like if you're poaching like some of the best players from the Championship, they're not gonna want to go and play for a bottom of the league club getting pumped every week. So it's incredibly frustrating as if you're a Wolves fan, because you're just not seeing any improvement. You're just seeing it every week. Your team's getting battered, and the players just aren't good enough. The club's a mess, and like I say, Rob Edwards, he does have a connection with Wolves. People were saying, "Why would you leave Middlesbrough? Why would you?" When you have I don't suppose it matters when you have. Let's take away obviously like someone like being professional in the footballing game. When you have a connection with a club, it's always difficult to turn it down. So like yourself, if a club that you support or that come knocking, where they are in the table is regardless to me. And that's the reason why I think he's took the Wolves job, because he has such a strong connection at Wolves, Rob Edwards. I do think they will see a reaction out of him, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough to save them anywhere near. They are 100% getting relegated. But I'll just go to Phil's point at the minute. You asked Phil whether you think Chelsea are in a title race or come whatever. The 6 points off Arsenal. So the answer at the minute, in my opinion, is yes, they are in a title race. Now, consistency is the key. I do agree with what Phil says. That they are very inconsistent, but there's still only 6 points, which that's not a lot. It's two. So they've got Cole Palmer to come back. I do agree they need to shape up defensively, because I don't think the defense is good enough. But they're a bit like Man City, in my opinion. Attacking wise, they have got a royalty of riches, and a bit like obviously with Man City, you've got Haaland dragging them into a title race. You've got Chelsea's attack sort of dragging them into a title race, in my opinion. Do I think they'll win the league? No, but I think at the minute they are still in the equation, definitely of sort of being on the cusp of touching and also getting in the Champions League spot. But if they don't have the consistency to the game, then no, I would change my opinion on that. But for now, I'd have to say that they are in a title race, because they're only 6 points behind Arsenal.
Yeah, no, it's a good shout. There's been a lot of talk of Chelsea on various networks this morning about how well Chelsea have quietly been going about the business and getting results. We've talked about inconsistency. Yeah,
the only thing I'd say to that, though, right, is, and not to you particularly, Nathan, but more the general chatter, the general chatter from some of the standard media outlets. If you follow that same train of thought, then are we saying that Sunderland are in a title race?
At the minute, they are. They're, you've got to say it. At the minute, they are.
Serious, is it? Like after 11, your points tally after 11 games, it doesn't make you in a title. I'm not even sure that Arsenal and City are in a title race. As in, we're 11 games in, aren't we? Like,
But if
you know,
you're
you
judging
said
it from the here and now,
But in that
We're
case, I
saying
think,
so here and now, Chelsea are in a title race. I'm saying that they need to add the consistency to the game for them to maintain that serious title race. The same
but
as Arsenal, they've got to carry on winning because if they don't, again, you're only 2 results away. The way this league is at the minute, how tight it is, you're only 2 or 3 wins or losses away from going up that table. So
but the
as much
time,
as I,
but I think that the stat of the weekend, wasn't it? Was that two? I think, because everyone's trying to make Liverpool fans feel better. Is that there's that two teams have won the Premier League before from being 8 points behind after 11 games. But by that measure, then it was just about points. We've got 9 teams in the title. We haven't got 9 teams in the title race, have we? Those 9 teams are not all in that title race. Like they're not good enough or consistent enough to be in a title race just because they can hold up to 18 points after 11 games.
but we'll find out, won't we? We're going to find out in the next few weeks whether these teams are good enough.
We will.
If we all cast his
That's
mind
how
back to when Leicester came and won the league, they had odds of 1,000 to 1 to win the league at a similar stage last way
It
back
was
in
more than that. One Leicester were 5,000 to 1 to win the league.
at the
They
start of the season.
basically
What?
said that there was more chance of Elvis landing on the moon than Leicester winning the league.
Well, let's not forget at Christmas there was still 1,000 to 1 to win the league, and they were top, and they went on to win the league. Sunderland are 150 to 1 to win the league at the minute. So I think the bookies have learnt the
Bookies have
lesson
learned the
on
lesson.
that.
Bookies have learned the lesson from that because obviously people back then, there was like £100 being stated as a laugh and a joke, and obviously you bit the bookies on the arse because I think someone won 250 grand. So you're not going to see teams that whether they've maintained it or not. They're not the bookies ain't going to give out huge odds like they did before because they
No,
did have the pants. They had their hands burnt. So, but no, to the point, to Phil's point, I don't think there's 9 teams that are capable of winning the league. But at the minute, it's incredibly tight, and for us, you look at the teams like take away. When I say even take away Arsenal, 2 wins put you 2, 3 places above it. It's mad, and 2 faces take you down. So it's a bit like last season. It was really, really tight, and it just goes to show where the Premier League is at the minute. You're not seeing, like to Phil's point, someone running away with it with 15 points.
yeah,
Because you don't want to see that. You want to see exciting. You want to see it like this.
Mm.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, let's move away from that anyway, and let's talk about your boys, Nathan. Let's talk about Villa, a comfortable 4-0 win at home to Bournemouth. And when did Bournemouth just not turn up? What happened? Talk us through the game, Nathan.
Just before that, what did we predict? Because I don't think you predicted my boys to get a win, did you?
So Nathan, you predicted 2-0. Phil, you had 2-1 for Bournemouth, and I had it down as a Desmond.
There we go,
So
eh?
on the point scored was by you, Nathan.
Exactly. You should have a little bit more faith in the boys in claret and blue, boys, eh?
We had faith in you the week before when you let us down against Liverpool.
Yeah.
So
Let's not forget.
obviously, I did watch the game. So I think there was a big disruption to the Bournemouth team. So their captain has a nasty. I don't know if you've seen it, nasty head clash with his own player with Tyler Adams, and both of
Right.
them go down. Really serious to the point where I did. Tyler Adams actually got up and continued with the game, and I don't think he should have. But their captain goes off after a couple of minutes, which obviously that's going to losing your captain after 3 or 4 minutes of a game is literally going to disrupt your plans. I think Bournemouth played well in spells. They do look good. They've got some very good players, but the problem that they have is that when they concede a goal, they don't look like sometimes getting back into it, and that's a bit like we did. But we get that goal from Emi Buendia, which people can't do anything about it. It's that sort of Cristiano Ronaldo ball where it goes up and over the wall. You then get Amadou Onana with an absolute perler from the outside of the area.
Good goal.
The third goal, I think Bournemouth do come back into it then with the penalty sort of shit. I mean, taking my claret and blue glass, I thought it was a bit harsh because I think when Morgan Rogers handballs it, I'm not sure where he's meant to put his hand. But the penalty gets given, and I have to say, for as poor as he was last week, Emi Martinez, that save is fantastic from Semenyo. That penalty save, so strong to get down to his right hand side. He made a cracking save as well from Alex Scott as well, where the ball looks like it's dipping in, and he just literally tips it over the bar. So, as bad as Emi Martinez was last week, he certainly made up for it this week against Bournemouth. So then, obviously, Bournemouth are still in it at 2-0. They keep coming forward at Villa, and then we just kill the game off with Barkley with that header. He loves a goal against Bournemouth. And then, to cap it off, Yuri Tielemans comes back, which is a massive plus for Villa now. So good to see him back. A player that I think we've missed him. We're going to reap the rewards of seeing him, obviously, towards the middle of the season. He hits a shot, he hits Donyell Malen, it goes in, it's 4-0. I think it's the Villa fans are saying it's our best performance of the season. I tend to agree because what we had is we had the team playing together, and we had four different goal scorers, which like you've got Erling Haaland doing the business for Man. We at the minute we haven't got that. Ollie Watkins is four. I mean, he played quite well, Watkins, but he's not scoring. But the team are chipping in, they're getting the goals, and I think that's what we haven't been doing over the last few seasons. The team hasn't scored enough goals collectively between them. But I'm really happy with that result. Again, it takes us up to we're seventh in the table now, or six.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're sixth in the table. Eight. There's one, two, three, 4 teams on 18 points. It's absolutely bonkers, isn't it? And so it's a good win. We do have the international break now. A lot of players go in there, same as you, Boyd. You just want your players to stay fit. You don't want to come back injured, because obviously now we're starting to get to the run up to Christmas, and this is where, particularly, obviously, we're all in Europe. We're playing a lot of games in a short space of time, and we're going to need the squad for it. So. Another big positive today: Morgan Rogers signing a new 6-year deal at Villa. So, obviously, we see players sign contracts all the time and still get sold. But what we are doing is, if in an event, we're protecting our. So we're saying that if you want to buy Morgan Rogers in the future, you're going to have to pay mega money because he's under a long contract. But he signed it, a bumper pay deal. And he played well yesterday, particularly to set the goal up from Amadou Onana. We're starting to get the old Morgan Rogers back, so I'm confident that we're going to start to see more and more of that sort of great performances sort of to the middle of the season. So yeah, it was a result I think we deserved. I'm really happy with it. And like I say, we're long gone of the day where we're begging for the international break. Now I don't want it. So yeah, I'm really happy with the result.
Slightly annoyed that Semenyo missed that penalty, especially for the for the football fantasy. Really annoying.
He did nothing. He did nothing in the game, though, Sean. He did.
So
I have to say, apart from the penalty miss, he did nothing.
saw the highlights. It was a bit of a poor performance from Bournemouth. To be fair, they didn't seem to get going. Like I said, they obviously were rattled early on in the game with that injury to the captain. Phil, your thoughts on that game? Did you see much of it? Did you see any highlights? Any touches?
I've seen highlights. I think it's one of those where for as well as Villa performed, and as well as the teams coming together, and Emery's obviously recovered from a dodgy start to the season. I think you're a Bournemouth fan. You're pretty disappointed. For any team to concede 4 is disappointing. And I hear Nathan's point about the disruption of losing your captain, but you'd like to think, like, given that disruption, most edge of top end Premiership teams, which you would say Bournemouth are, would have the wherewithal to sort of shut the door and play a more defensive game and just look. It's thrown off whack, but let's at least put. And I'm not saying the Villa wouldn't have won, but I think 4-0 is a pretty poor reflection for Bournemouth. To be honest, penalty. And the penalty, you can argue momentum. It's a different game if he scores it, and big players for big moments. And as much as, like you say, Martinez has had some ropey moments this season, that's obviously a good moment for him, and sort of showing his worth back to the club, I suppose, for continuing to play him after he essentially was planning to leave in the off season. So, you're pleased with the performance as a Villa fan. You're disappointed as a Bournemouth fan because they're conceding 4, and as we all know, losing going international break is a shit place to be, because you've got 2 weeks to brew on the fact you've lost. You don't have any matches to claw it back, or any, so it's a disappointing way to go into it, really. So Bournemouth had a good start to the season, and that result's not going to define where they're going and what they're trying to achieve this season. But a really good result for Villa against a really well organised and spirited Bournemouth team that shows that I think if you beat Bournemouth, you're pretty much showing you've got the capacity to go and beat anybody up with those top echelon teams. But yeah, I think Bournemouth just a little bit disappointed in the day. Like Nate said, probably thrown off somewhat by that clash of heads and losing the captain. But you'd like to think with Iriola's the way he's got them organised, that has still shown more spine and more fight than that. Villa starting to show signs of what we saw last season, which and like Nate says, it's important because you're coming into a time of the season where it's going to come thick and fast. Guardiola's interview the other day, you can't lose the league in the first 11 games. No, but you can certainly lose the league and get knocked out of cups in the second 11 games. That's the period we're heading into between this return after the international break and into late February. So yeah, it's a really good sign for Villa. Disappointing signs for Bournemouth, but I don't think it's sort of a rock setting result. I think it's just more of a bit of an aberration for them really, and they just need to get it back on track.
Yeah. Well, a good result for Villa, to be fair, and like I say, Nathan, plenty of people chipping in, scoring goals for you. Not relying on any forwards. So yeah, well done, Villa, 4-0. Keith Andrews at Brentford is doing a remarkable job, I think. Where do I start with this
Talk
one?
us through it, Sean.
Yeah.
Talk us through it. Where did it go wrong?
Where did it even start, yeah, alone to go wrong? Really poor performance for Newcastle. It finished 3-1 to Brentford, and it was well deserved. They played really well. We were poor again. I say poor, frustrating. I think we had one shot on target all game, which was the Barnes goal. They took his goal really well, but again, from the rest of the squad, not enough. Not enough. This international break can't come quickly enough for me, and this is the first time you'll hear me say this. It's unlike me to wish for an international break. I'm the first one to go, I hate it, I can't stand it. But you know what? If it means not watching Newcastle for 2 weeks, so be it. Yeah, really disappointing, really poor. Individual performances, shocking. Um,
Doing for the second goal, is it? What's he doing for the throw in where he got caught? What's he doing? He's just in complete no man's land, isn't he? So
yeah, yeah, just I think all the goals we conceded, there could be more. Players. Bottom on for the third one. Shocking. He didn't even know where he was. You could see he was running. You couldn't even see it Theo behind him. Frustrating, really frustrating. We seem to have lost his dickhead rate, if you want to call it that. A shithouser rate. We used to bully teams and be physical.
I don't
I'm
think
not
it
saying
helped
that.
though. Didn't Joe Linton go off quite early in the match? Didn't he?
Yeah,
Didn't he
so
go off 20
to be
minutes in or
fair,
something?
if you saw the original challenge, it should have been reviewed. It's a red card. His studs are just below the knee, a full foot of studs just below the knee. It wasn't looked at. Um, the first penalty against Dan Burn, debatable. The second one where Dan Burn gets sent off, I don't even think it touches him. The referee is 30
Well,
yards away. It
the
wasn't
only, the
even
only
looked at.
the only argument you'd have against that is he's Dan Burn himself. Like Dan Burn didn't argue, did he? Like
He
Dan Burn
didn't know.
didn't even shake his head when he was given that second yellow. Like, he it's not like he was complaining and going, "I didn't touch him." Like, do you know what I mean? That would be my only comment against that. He didn't is that Dan Burn didn't complain, and you kind of well, you didn't. I mean, when whether he kicked, he didn't look like he wasn't exactly going, "No, he's died." He was just like, hands up, yeah, he looked guilty, didn't he? Is all I'd
Yeah.
say.
And saw the
You
replay
know,
though. The contact was absolute minimum. Absolute minimal contact. If any contact at all. And I get it. These results happen. These things happen. VAR either goes against you or goes with you done it. And unfortunately for us, it really went against us on the weekend. But yeah, Hal's got to do something. As a Newcastle fan, 70 years. He's the best manager we've had in probably 70 years. He's brought us a trophy. He's
whoa,
got
Bobby
us.
Robson.
I ain't finished. I ain't finished. But he's brought us a trophy. Co- Champions League 2 seasons out of three. On paper, it speaks volumes. But there's talk of pressure on him, and there's talk of replacing him by a deluded set of Newcastle fans. I'm a Newcastle fan myself, we all know. But like, he's got plenty of credit in the bank, I think, for now. He does need to sort it out. Then sort it out quickly because the away form's terrible. End of the day, we can have
listen,
as
Sean, you turned over by West Ham quite easily. You got turned over by Brentford quite easily, and these
but
are the yeah, it is, and we've said this all along. Your home form is not the problem, is it? It's your away form, and you're not going to have the aspirations of being a top top six team. While ever you're putting in performances like that away, it has to get better, doesn't it? It's
This is why I think the international breaks come at the right time for us. I think we just need a complete reset, rethink. Harry needs to go back to the drawing board and get with his coaching staff and have a look at what's going on because it's getting to the point where it's not excusable anymore. Like the performances just aren't there. There's no fight. There's not even a bit of aggression. Joe Linton, we know how much of a handful he's been over the last couple of years, but he's going down. He's getting touched. He's going down all the time. Like what the fuck's all that about? You're a fucking 6'2" bloke, fucking built like a brick shithouse, and you're going down at the slightest tackle. Like fight, fucking fight back. What's wrong with you? You know, Gordon.
Is it under pressure? Go on.
He's under pressure. He's got credit at the bank, but he's under pressure. Yeah, he's probably got 5 games, and if he don't get a result in the next 5 games, he's probably going to be really looking over his shoulder and thinking, "Fuck, I would be."
What
Like,
do those 5 games look like? Are they?
I don't
You know,
look at the minute. I don't look. I just want to enjoy the international break, not worry about any football, and we'll come back to it. Then, if I'm honest
you've
with you,
changed.
we play Man
You've
City after the
changed.
international break. We play Man City after the international break, and we've always shown up against it, whether it's be home or away. So it'd be
Everton
interesting.
away as well, Sean.
Yeah, well, we've
Everton
always.
away.
Yeah,
Sorry, you got a Champions League game nestled in with that. And then the beginning of December, you got Spurs at home, and then you got Burnley. So yeah, you just need to get better. You just need to get better away. It's not the home form. You're doing well in the Champions League, so yeah. I don't think Eddie Howe's under pressure in terms of like he's going to be sacked after in the next 5 games. I do agree that if he doesn't get a result, then obviously there is going to be questions asked of him. But he's got so much credit in the bank. You've just reeled off, Champions League football 2 years out of three, a trophy delivered after 7 years. The problem you've got is like even though like Isak is a massive loss. Voltemada is decent, but he's not Isak. Isak was your last season the way he was. Voltemada is still new to the Premier League and he's still adjusting, and he needs a bit more time. I think the problem you're getting is that the squad depth still ain't brilliant, is it? I don't think, in my opinion, at Newcastle. I think you look on the bench, you've got one, maybe two players that you can do it. Whereas you look at Arsenal, they've got six players could come and play in the Arsenal team from the start. I don't think that's the case with Newcastle.
I don't think that. I think some of it boils down to chemistry. If you start on strongest 11, the chemistry's there. They play well. They can have these little intricate little passes, the ball over the top to the right hand side, or Barnes and Gordon on the left hand side with the triangles that we've been playing. But if we don't have us as first team 11, and we're putting in Ramsey, who's not
So,
quite up to speed yet. He's playing well. He's looking impressive, but he's not quite up to speed with how we play. So it'd be exciting to see once he integrate properly. It will be interesting, but at the
when it's
minute, it's
1-1
just
though, Sean, when it's 1-1, I reckon Phil could name 3 or 4 players to come off the Arsenal bench and change the game. And I could probably do the same with Villa with the depth that we've got. And that's the issue, isn't it? So you look at that at 1-1, it's like, can you bring on 3 players that's going to get a foothold in that game and get you that victory? And that's where you're lacking, in my opinion, at the minute. And then obviously teams are getting caught off this long ball at the minute. Like, we're back in 2010 with Tony Pulis football here now. But Pope
also.
can't be making that mistake. That he's absolutely in no man's land.
Yeah.
I mean, did he go off injured? No, did he get subbed because of the red card, or
It's
what happened?
substitution
Because I
made
know
because of the red
Ramsdale
card,
finished the
yeah,
game,
but
didn't he?
It was a fall, wasn't it?
yeah.
Didn't he fell.
Yeah.
So obviously, is he injured then, Pope? Is that the reason why he went
I
off,
don't know. Yeah, I'm
or did he
guessing
take him off because he was
it's a
playing
heavy ball
shit?
that took it. I don't. I think he was going to make the substitution before the penalty was awarded anyway. To be fair, but like he didn't look great after the ball. I think he was winded, so
But the thing
fully
is, though,
expecting to be back.
maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing if he does get dropped and Ramsdale comes in, because that'll give him a bit of a kick up the backside to say, look, stop being complacent. You're going to be doing that. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Ramsdale is a very good goalkeeper.
absolutely.
So
I'll be the first to say I've criticised Pope, but especially on his handling the ball and distributing the ball. He's not been great at that this season. There has been improvements. We've seen him instead of trying to tilly-tally with his foot, and he's actually picking the ball up and throwing it now, rather than actually trying to create a fucking 70-yard pass, which has been a massive game changer for him. So credit where credit's due. Pope has turned a little bit of a corner when it comes to distribution, but I do think if he's injured and Ramsdale gets a chance, I think it'd be really interesting to see how Pope deals with that, with having Pope and Ramsdale both fit. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. But yeah, really disappointing performance again. Again, another 3-1 loss away. Long way to go. 6 points in the league changes everything. So 2 wins on the bounce, so it changes everything, doesn't it? But yeah, really disappointing performance. Anything you guys want to add to that, Phil, maybe?
I think just been, I know we've got a show coming up next week to look at how the teams have got on generally in the season, but just really lackluster. I was surprised at Dan Burn's lack of, for someone who, he's obviously very experienced now, and he's obviously on the fringes of the England squad, and it just seemed a real lack of experience. There was a chance. There was one in the first half where he pulled the guy down by tugging his shirt before he got booked for the first time
Yeah,
for pulling his shirt. Obviously, he's got away with the. I do generally think the first penalty incident was probably more contact than the second, so he's kind of got away with one there.
yeah,
Um, and whatever you say about the second one, it's clumsy at best, and you give the referee the chance to make a decision. So I was surprised at his lack of discipline. I did think, without having watched the whole game, I did wonder whether like the captain coming off, whether losing Joe Linton so early disrupted the midfield, which maybe disrupted the flow of play. But again, you would go, well, he came off so early. I'd have expected Eddie Howe to have more of an impact at half time to sort the boys out and get their heads in the right place. And obviously, went in ahead at half time, I think, didn't you? So you'd have thought Eddie Howe would have maybe changed it for the positive at Bournemouth. Not Bournemouth, sorry. But Brentford came out, stronger in the second half, and so that was a surprise. And I just think, yeah, you've seemed really lacklustre away from home, haven't you? And like you say, just probably the summation of this moment is just disappointing. I mean, again, full credit to Brentford. I mean, what they've done for they had an absolutely abysmal summer in terms of transfer window. So how they've played in this first 11 games has been absolutely nothing short of remarkable team spirit and remarkable
2
organisation.
points off Spurs, Phil. Like Thomas Frank's gone. The 2 points off Spurs. I know it seems like a long way, but that's how tight the table is.
yeah,
They're doing an unbelievable job, absolutely brilliant job, and you can't ask any more of that Brentford squad. They are absolutely ripping up trees for the like I said the blows they took last summer in terms of who they lost. Yeah, like I said, from a Newcastle, just disappointing. I think the summation. It's just can't understand. It's kind of a bit like we were talking about with Villa at the very start of the season. He just doesn't can't really see why it's not clicking. It just is same player, same motivation. In fact, more than ever, you're in the Champions League. Maybe that's it. Maybe they've got their eyes on the Champions League too much and thinking about that. But just lackluster at best at the minute. And I think you would have expected from a team in the Champions League, like I say, a little bit better game management in the second half. You're coming out 1-0 up. You're fresh off your team talk. You've done your job in the first half. You'd have just expected, like I said, Dan Burn probably summed it up. You'd have expected probably better game management from Newcastle in the second half that just let Brentford get in and also mix it up. And for Brentford, they did exactly again what they needed to do against a team that clearly is a better football inside, but they showed togetherness, organisation, and deadly from set pieces again. In spite of the assist from was it Botman who headed it off Nick Pope's glove, wasn't it? But it's I mean that's never helpful as a goalkeeper. As much as he looked clumsy and probably a bit out of his depth, it doesn't help when your defenders head it off your punch, does it? So yeah, just really got in amongst. So I think Newcastle just need to, like you say, get a reset and remember what they're trying to achieve this season. And Brentford just need to carry on doing what they're doing. But in a way, it's difficult. I know it's hard because it's your boys, but that sort of result sums up why we do love the Premier League. You've got a team in Newcastle we all thought would be walking back in the Champions League spots and competing, and clearly doing well in the Champions League at the minute.
yeah.
And they are sort of struggling towards the bottom end. But I think it says I think that the Newcastle are closer to the bottom three than they are the teams just above them. And you're 3 points off the team above you, and you're only 2 points off 17th.
Yes, and yeah.
So
It's not good.
it's
It's not good reading, to be fair. It's not good
no. I
reading.
mean, obviously, you'll have enough. There's no chance of getting drawn into it.
No,
But
no.
again, it goes back to this. It's you've got no matter how good you are, and no matter where you want your club to go, you've got to be performing week in, week out. And unfortunately, at the minute Newcastle leave a lot to be desired in that front, really. So
Yeah. Well, Nathan, you had it 1-0. Phil, you had it one apiece, and I had it 2-1 Newcastle. So Nathan gets a point for that one. Yeah,
Nathan. It's
I
flying
know.
back into it.
It's
Look at
creeping
that
back
grin.
into it. It's creeping back into it. What's going on?
It's only I only have it's because of that your away form at the minute is not great, and I just and it was probably proved right when I so
Yeah.
You were that.
Well,
You were that.
let's move away from that though. Thank God. Palace Brighton 0-0 at finish. Nathan, you had 2-1. Phil, you had 2-1. I had 2-0 Palace. So no one scored points on that one. Nathan, thoughts on this game?
yeah. What more can you say? 0-0. That's
Yeah.
the derby. That's not a derby, isn't it? So obviously no team wants to lose that game. Because they don't like each other, do they? I'm not sure why they don't like each other. I'm sure Palace or Brighton fans would be able to tell why.
It's the M23 derby, isn't it?
Yeah, just like the 50 miles between them or whatever it is.
Yeah.
No, I think it's one of those. I think if you're Brighton, I think you're the happier of the two. I think they got denied a penalty, didn't they? Which was apparently quite controversial, I believe. So that's given the score. That's a different story, isn't it? But two teams that didn't want to lose the game. Very close in how the stats were as well. So you're looking at the table now, and you've got obviously Palace and Brighton literally a point apart, and that's probably where the reflection in the result comes from. Not much
Yeah.
to separate them. Not really much more I can add to that, to be honest.
No, to be fair, it was a pretty bleak 0-0. I watched the highlights. So I want a great deal to shout about. Phil, did you see much of it? Did you have a look?
I think if I'd have watched much of it, I'd have got a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, you talk about impacts of players, and Guehi wakes up in the morning with they say it's not a broken foot, but he's limping around, he can't walk, and he's not playing. You do wonder whether that affects Palace's. He's their captain, he's their main central defender. It's going to, like Nate said about the Bournemouth chat, it's going to disrupt your pre-match prep, isn't it? You've lost your captain in the build-up. Still don't understand why, really. We don't know why he's out. So, and apparently it looks like it's going to be weeks. So that's great news for football.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the only shock in that game was that nobody scored. You'd bet your house on the fact somebody would have scored. I mean, I think it was one of those where you looked at it and the result could have literally gone any which way, really. But no one scoring, I really didn't see coming. But I guess at the end of the day, both teams are reasonably comfortable because both teams will look at each other as actually a challenging game. And what's that phrase again? If you can't win it, don't lose it. But yeah, that definitely was definitely not one for the ages. Very forgettable. Yeah, we'll move on from that one pretty quickly, I think.
Well, let's go straight on to the Forest and Leeds game. Forest 3-1 winners at Leeds. A point for Nathan, a point for me, and Phil. You predicted one apiece for this one. Nathan, you had 1-0, I had 2-1. Phil dropping points again. Nathan, you've got some family ties. Obviously, been involved with Leeds. Yeah, let's talk me through it. What happened?
Yes, so you're disappointed again, aren't you? If you're a Leeds fan, you go 1-0 up. It's a great goal, great finish by Is it Ncheka? I think it is. But the problem with Leeds now, I think, is you look at the goals, the way they switch off and the way they allow the space for them to happen is just not acceptable. And you are in a league now where, in the Championship you get away with it. In the Premier League you get punished. And like the players at the minute, they're just on this little bit of sort of, they're not in free fall, but they just can't seem to be putting a consistent results run together. And the problem you've got as a Leeds fan now is that you've got Forest and you've got um, West Ham winning around you. So that's when you need to start looking and going, right, if we don't start winning now, we're going to find ourselves in the bottom three. And that they're not far from it. So, there's a lot of Leeds fans at the minute that are just starting to question whether Farker's the right man now. I don't want to be a case of I told you so, but I said that, when you get to the next international break, the one before Christmas, you look at that, if you're not there or thereabouts, then you're going to start asking the question of your manager. And people said I were mad for that. but I'm starting to be not proved right, but I'm sort of that's where my thinking was is you're not in any immediate danger, but you are close enough to that bottom three to be worried that if you don't start seeing results going your way and start picking up results, then you're going to get into there. Now, again, it's doesn't get much easier for Leeds. We play Leeds United next away, so it's going to be they'll look at that game and thinking they're going to get something out of it, but Villa are going to go there thinking that we're going to get a result. So it's going to be interesting that, but they concede poor goals. And fair play to Forest. They're starting to pick up on the Dyche, aren't they? They're doing what we thought Dyche was going to do. They're going to get a tune out the team. I still don't think they look amazing, if I'm honest, Forest, even though they have got some brilliant players. They won 3-1, but I think Leeds made it incredibly easy for them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's nice to see.
Forest.
Yeah, it's nice to see Dyche playing players in the roles where back to the strengths again. A bit Postecoglou was playing players a bit, but there wasn't really any system in place really. I think, and I see Elliot Anderson playing good football again, giving that free role again in midfield,
Penalty well, didn't he? Good
playing
penalty.
really well. Yeah, yeah. Phil,
Yeah, it was like you say, Dyche is starting to have the effect we thought it might. Like I say, very much to what you thought were two good appointments in Dyche and Nuno towards the bottom end of the table for West Ham and Forest. Both looking like over the next few games they'll demonstrate that they'll claw themselves out of trouble, which is not looking good for Leeds and Burnley, if I'm honest, because you look above and you think, well, so and so team's got potential. You look at them, so I don't really see where it's coming from. I think pressure on Farker. I don't know. I think Leeds fans are in danger of being like West Ham fans, aren't they? Like there's a severe lack of gratitude for what's been done to get that team in the Premier League, which is just sad to see. I think if any team, I think the way that as fans we so quickly turn on managers, and after a few results, like, and I get nobody likes losing, but
They've got some
you,
tough.
you,
They've got some tough fixtures though now. Leeds United, Phil.
no,
Really
I get that,
fixtures.
but he got you out of the championship with one of the highest points tallies ever in the championship. Like, where's the loyalty? I get the fact everybody wants to stay in the Premier League, but
There is the question is the answer there isn't.
there should be. It might. I know I'm old fashioned. I know I'm old fashioned, right? And I was take my own club for example. I've been Arteta in forever, but I just think after such a short period of time, it's really poor to start turning the manager, and I just think it shows. And for any Leeds fans, I apologise if you're watching this. I just think it shows a genuine lack of class of the fans to turn on managers. And you've only got, in my opinion, look at West Ham, bunch of Wally sacking David Moyes, and now they've had 18 months of turmoil, and they might be turning the corner now with Nuno, but that's only because of Nottingham Forest school. Because if Marinakis hadn't made a hash of that, they wouldn't have Nuno, and they'd still be struggling. So I just think it's lacking, but not enough from in terms of match the match, not enough from Leeds, and against we talk about experience in the Premier League, very very savvy Nottingham Forest team, savvy on the pitch, savvy in the dugout, and showed that at the weekend really. And you're right, Leeds have got difficult games to come, and I do think the season looks like a big ask for Leeds, but I think I don't think division is ever the answer to I think unity is the biggest strength you've got, and I think pull together rather than pulling apart, because I think what happens when fans start turning on managers and boards is that you start unsettling the players, because they're not stupid, they live in the city, they hear the fans on a weekend, and what that starts to do is it starts to throw the players' minds past what they should be doing, is coming together. And I want to see Leeds in the Premier League. I like seeing the local club in the Premier League, even though I'm an Arsenal fan, but I just think they should remember what the number one job is. The number one job is surviving the Premier League, and the best way the fans can help the club is by supporting the whole club.
Let me ask you a question then. So with Farker, with Regis and loyalty, when's enough then? Like before you consider sacking him, or replacing him with someone who can get a better tune out of the players.
So you say when's enough? So my point would be to any Leeds fan listening out there, feel free to comment and tell me I'm cool, or if you see me on the street, come and chat to me in the light. But my point would be, we all said coming into this season that if you're Leeds, if you're Burnley, if you're Sunderland, your only goal has got to be to finish 17th. Leeds are 16th. As far as I'm concerned, right here, right now, he's doing his job. Forget what games are to come. Right here today, he's doing the job he's been paid to do, which is right now, Leeds United are not getting relegated from the Premier League. I understand what might change. You can't sack someone for what might happen. Right here, right now, well, in my opinion, but right here, right now, he's done his job. They're not in the relegation zone. They're like you said yourself, Nathan, the league is so tight on points. If they win that first match back after the international break and the wrong teams above them lose, they can bounce up to 14th. They're not put adrift yet, and to turn on him when he do it, like I say, Leeds fans out there, be realistic. Your target this season is 17th. It is Premiership survival. You know yourself, Nathan. That season, Jack Grealish saved you right at the very death and kept you as a Premier League club. Is now the reason why you're competing in the champion. Well, sorry, borderline Champions League, but Europa League, right? It's because he saved you, and it doesn't matter how you survive that first season. All that matters is surviving. So for me, unless Leeds are in the relegation zone and getting cut adrift, I wouldn't be turning your back on the manager who brought you up with a record points total because he's the reason you're there. Where's the? I get everyone's nervous and everyone wants to stay in the Premier League, but where's your gratitude? You're not Wolves. If they were cut adrift like Wolves and with 2 points and 8 points away from safety, you'd be like, do you know what? Fair enough. You're miles off doing the job you're paid to do. But they're 16th. He's doing his job. They are not getting relegated right now. So for me, he shouldn't be under any pressure. When's enough enough? Maybe when you cut adrift at the bottom and in the relegation zone. But apart from that, give the man a chance. Like I get it. He may not have had success in the Premier League before, but how do managers earn the experience in the Premier League to get the chance to show that they should be there?
Those Leeds
I wouldn't
fans, there were Leeds
put him in
fans
drift.
calling for his sack before the season even started, though, to be fair.
Oh no, I saw that. I don't really follow Leeds a great deal, but I saw that in the newspapers. I don't get it. I don't get
Unbelievable.
it. He's just got promoted. He just won you the championship, and you turn on him before a ball's been kicked. And now you're not in the relegation zone. Sure, everybody wants, but get a dose of reality. You've just gone up into the Premier League. All right, you might be a little bit bitter that Sunderland have had some good results, but you can't have expected to win every week coming up from Championship to Premiership. Your only job is to finish 17th. And for me, when's enough enough? When they're adrift in the relegation zone and probably 8 to 10 points from being out of the relegation
Would
zone.
you say that as an owner, then, like you're looking at it, and again, I'm not particularly about whether they get sacked or not. 'Cause I'm not a Leeds fan. I'm just saying though that the six or the next five matches that they've got are incredibly tough. Now, to your point, they could turn Villa over, and that changes perspective. But to me, if I'm looking as an owner now, and I take your points to saying you bit of loyalty because you did take them up, and I get that. But if they don't get any sort of results from there now. It's just say they lose all five, then I think seriously, then when Christmas time they're going to have to start
Well,
looking.
I think I think as an owner, you would like to think, and I know again more and more these days, like you say, look at Marinakis and they live in fuzzy fantasy land. But as an owner, you'd like to think you should be more measured than your average fan on the terrace. And I think we said in the preseason stuff, you look at the fixture list and you kind of go, right, we'd expect to beat that team, draw against that team. We're probably going to drop points there, and anything in those little lost it. So I don't know. I don't actually know what the next five fixtures are. But I think as an owner, you would have sat there with Farker at the start, or you'd have sat as a team at the start of the season, and right, whatever those 5 games were, they might have gone. And would expect to lose all 5 of those games, right? At which point, what I would say to you is, well, in 5 games' time, they've lost all 5. It doesn't matter because at the start of the season, we expected to lose all 5 of them. They might have said, well, out of those 5, we expect 3 draws and 2 losses. So what I would say at the end of those 5 games is, did we get 3 draws and 2 losses? Because what was your target? And I think that's the issue with football fans these days. We look at the fixture list and you kind of go, let's say you're a freshly promoted team. You probably look at going to the Etihad. You look at going to the Emirates. You look at going to Anfield, and you go, right, those 3 games are probably losses. Then what happens is we get into the season and you might be hovering around relegation, and people go, "Oh, I can't believe it! You've got to win that game now. You need a result." Well, bullshit. You didn't expect to get the result before the season, so why would you expect to get the result now? It's crazy. So I don't know what the next 5 fixtures are, but
So They've got
I would say. Oh, go on.
they've got Villa
They've got
away.
Villa.
Sorry, Villa at home, Man City away, Chelsea at home, Liverpool at home, Brentford away.
Right. So I would have said, and this is just me, and clearly I don't sit in the Leeds, thing, but I would be saying I would have expected probably, or I would have been targeting maybe having look at the summer 3 points from those games because I'd probably hope to maybe beat Brentford. I'd expect to lose the other four. So if they get 3 points out of those next 5 games, I would say they're doing well, and I wouldn't have any pressure on him because be- how can you realistically say that the manager of a newly promoted club should be expecting to beat a team that missed out on Champions League by literally a bad refereeing decision on the last day, three of the best four teams in the country, and all right, Brentford, you'd maybe expected to start seeing to get a result. I just don't think you can say he's got to get results because you would never have expected results against those teams. In your wildest dreams, you wouldn't expect to beat those teams. So I just think there needs to be a dose of realism from Leeds fans. Again, I think some of it is none of them. It's a bit like Man United fans, isn't it? Leeds fans have never got past 1994. Still think they're a Champions League club and wait like get a grip. You're a freshly promoted Championship club. You are in dreamland if you finish 17th. That's unbelievable. And it's as simple as that. And anything after that is a bonus. So
Yeah.
I certainly don't think you should be under pressure today because they're 16th. For me, that's it. They're not in the relegation zone. He's done it. He's doing his job. You're actually right, mate. After 5 games, next 5 games, maybe he's not doing his job. Maybe they are in the relegation zone. Maybe they
I
are
think
good.
they'll definitely one eye on. He's under pressure. Make no mistake about that. He'll know now that if he doesn't deliver in these next 5 games, the board will be looking and going right.
But deliver what? The board would be mad to. If you lose to Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, if the board put him under pressure for that, the board needs shooting because they can't possibly have dreamt of beating those four teams.
The board, it's almost say that they'll look at that, and if they're in the relegation battle, then who knows? Then Wolves might be picking up a few results after that. I mean, it's all ifs and buts because, like you say, it stands a good chance. If they do get a result against Villa, then what the conversations we're having there are all irrelevant because obviously the pressure sort of relieves a bit off Farker. But they've got some incredibly tough games, so they need to start shaping up and fast. So yeah,
But the flip
Well,
side for Farker is if you're in the board, do you believe that Daniel Farker would bring you straight back up out of the Championship? Because if you do, and you think you might go down, why would you be parting company with him? Because he'll bring you straight back up again. And I know Leeds fans don't want to be a yo-yo club, and I know they want to be a Premier League club, but from a board point of view, if you are starting to get cut adrift, you need to know you're coming back the season after because with the parachute payment and the new payment, you effectively got the finances of a Premier League club every year, haven't you? So
yeah,
I just think that
I don't dispute that. I'm just like I say, it's the Premier League is a ruthless business, and you look at managers have lost their jobs for far less than for what they're. So it is incredibly difficult, but it's going to be a tough few weeks if Leeds don't pick up any results because again they'll end up could end up in the relegation zone. But they've got a good team spirit. Leeds they could pull results together. You just don't know what they're capable of. But it's the inconsistency is the reason why they're not further up the table like Sunderland. So
yeah, I agree.
well, let's move on. Let's talk about another club that's really inconsistent, and that's Liverpool. Lost 3-0 away to Man City. Nathan, you had a massive prediction of 3-3. That didn't work out. Phil, you were a bit more reserved at 2-2, and I went for the City win 2-1. So 1 point for me, no points for you guys. Yeah, Phil, do you want to take us through this one?
Well, I'd challenge your inconsistent comment because I think in the last 6 games they've got 5 losses. So I think they're remarkably consistent. To be fair, consistently shite. Um, but I mean, they just didn't turn up, did they? I mean, they showed again they're just weak defensively. That partnership, partnership between Salah and Bradley is just non-existent. Salah doesn't want to defend, and the system is not set up to cope with Salah not defending. You saw, I think, on the pitch map, I think something like 55, 56% of City's attacks came down that left flank. It was clearly they were targeting that gap. Doku was just unbelievable, almost unplayable.
Had a
I mean, what a
great
fabulous
game.
game he had.
great goal he scored, didn't it? Great goal.
Absolutely, but I think he's fine margins, isn't it? You look at that first penalty. all right, he probably makes contact. Then you're back into this debate of is contact enough for a penalty because it was very, very light contact. Obviously, it's a big momentum shift in their favour when he saves that penalty. And you kind of go, look, Liverpool are right in this. You get that lucky deflect. Haaland gets that deflection off Canate's back. It's not where he's trying to head the ball, so he gets lucky with that and obviously leaves the goalkeeper stranding nowhere near it. A controversial opinion, particularly as an Arsenal fan, but Van Dijk's goal should have stood. Huge.
It's dividing opinion. So are you in the opinion it should? What about yourself, Sean? Do you think it should have stood?
50-50.
You read the wording of the law. The law says
I think it should have stood.
The law says you have to impede an opposing player from playing the ball. There is nothing that Robertson does that stops Donnarumma dive. Well, you look at the replay. Donnarumma dives that ball full length. The reason he doesn't reach it is because his weight's going that way when he should be going that way, and he can't reach it when he dives back across. Robertson doesn't get in the way in the slightest. He absolutely ducks under the ball. But the rule doesn't say you can't duck under the ball. The rule says you cannot block the opposing player. But he doesn't block the opposing player. So
I don't think it'll change
in my mind, like I say, take as an ask. So the only change being that's a complete momentum shift in the game, isn't it? Because then it's 1-1, and we don't and obviously for the Liverpool players it must disrupt them to have thought they've equalised. They've gone through all that emotion of they've equalised, and then they're right. The legs are cut out from under them. It's like, oh shit, we're still 1-0 down. They're frustrated because they don't agree with the decision because they think they should have had the goal. And then they have that hammer blow of the deflection. I think Van Dijk's trying to dance the fucking quick step or something when he flicks his ankle out. I don't know, but they have that hammer blow. Then of not only do they concede just before half time, but it's also another dodgy goal because it's just a deflection that without the deflection it just rolls straight into keeper's arms and it's a pretty harmless shot. So you're right. I do think City played far better, and probably City would have carried the day. We don't know what that momentum shift would have done. And like I say, I am an Arsenal fan. I do think the goal should have stood. I don't mean because City are catching us up. I just don't believe Robertson got in Donnarumma's way. And again, they've shown a few times on the telly, haven't they, the replay of the Man City goal against Wolves last season. And you're like, if that goal stood, how the hell does Van Dijk's not stand? Because in the Man City one, Bernardo Silva's wrestling with the goalkeeper and they still give the goal. So I do think I'd be aggrieved as a Liverpool fan. But I think you'd go, well, like you said, Sean, it was still only 1-0 when that happened, and you've got the rest of the game to sort it out, and they didn't compete anywhere near enough. It's a bit like the Chelsea match, you'd be disappointed the fight the team showed or didn't show. Far too many examples of Deku exposing Bradley and Salah not helping him, and Liverpool, Man City doubling up down that flank. Man City looking very, very ominous. That's probably the first performance I've seen where we talked last week or the week before about Haaland dragging them into a title race. They looked like a team this week. They were firing, they were clicking, they were definitely bouncing off each other and looked far more dangerous than they have been in weeks. And they were really up for that game. And I think Guardiola's statement last week about you can't win the league, you can lose it. He's probably saying to his players, look, if we beat Liverpool here, they might well be down and out at the end of this. They're mentally going to be a massive hurdle, for their next games. So yeah, City looked absolutely awesome. Liverpool looked again exposed at the back and not really cohesive going forward. Gakpo obviously thought he was playing the rugby union match. I think when he hit that shot fucking 4 mile up a bar. And Salah just not quite clicking, and you get fine margins. It bounces past the post by 6 or 7 inches. Another day it bounces off the inside of the post, goes in, and suddenly you've maybe got a nervy last 10 minutes. But City looked really awesome. He deserved the win. For all I'm saying, Van Dijk's goal should have stood. And I still stick to it. I think it should have. City deserved the win, 100%. And they're looking very, very ominous right now. So if it was a really good match to kick off the weekend, it was a really good match to finish the weekend. To be fair, with the incidents and the goals, and yeah, City looked really, really good, really good.
You've already touched it, but Doku had a great game. Foden also looked like he's sort of getting towards his best again. He looked really good. Nathan, what are your thoughts on the game? What were your take home points on that game?
To be fair, there's not a lot I can argue against with Phil because I think he's absolutely spot on. I do think Van Dijk's goal should have stood. The inconsistency with VARs over the last couple of seasons is terrible because there's been incidences where that sort of thing happens in previous last year or in other games it gets given, and it can't. I think Slot made a point. And what I do like about Arnie Slot is he's not afraid to speak the truth. Like he come out and he went, "Look, we got beat by the better team. We deserve to lose." He says, "My issue is," he says, "after the linesman puts his flag up, there's about a 15-second difference." And it's they're off celebrating, thinking that Van Dijk's got them back into the game, and that's the problem I have with VAR. For as much as it can be good, they have to look at that, and they have to. I don't see how Robinson is interfering. Robertson is again. If it depends on which side of the coin you're looking at it. So, but what they do Liverpool then is they get caught by the deflection is like the Gonzalez is it's a bad deflection, isn't it? But Doku's goal, you're not doing nothing about. I mean, it's an absolute fantastic goal. Man City, be delighted that they're to Phil's point where he says you won't lose, you ain't going to win the league, but you don't want to be out of it. But for Liverpool now, it's 5 losses. And I mean, you look at that. Nottingham Forest sort of near the they lost 6 games. It's that form there where you look at it and you think, wow, this is Liverpool. This is Liverpool Football Club that last season won the league at a canter. Yes, I know that they've had tragic circumstances and there's a lot of change going on, but I wouldn't have thought that before Christmas they'd have lost 5 Premier League games. I think they probably would have not even done that all season if I were a betting man at the start. But they have now, and they've got to address it very quickly now because despite the result against Villa, and I'll be biased here, we made it easy for Liverpool, and if we give them a goal, but I genuinely believe if we'd have probably played Liverpool this week, we probably would have turned them over. But no, that's just me with my Villa head on. But no, Liverpool need to start getting results in. They're not out of the title race because it's just not. But Arsenal and the gap between them now was it 8 points, and that's do you see Arsenal now realistically losing more than 3 games in the season? I don't.
Their issue now as well. You've got Arsenal and like I said, Man City looking ominous, and you just if I think like I said the stat was like there's 2 teams that have won the Premier League after being 8 points off after 11 games. But I think when you look at teams this season, to build on your point, do you see Liverpool catching up 4 points on Man City and 8 points on Arsenal? Both those teams.
It's not impossible.
It's tough, isn't it? And mentally, that's going to play on their mind. So sorry, I want to take over.
No. I agree with what you're saying. Like you say, it is a big ask, and they need to improve. I think the aim now is, I'm not saying that, they've got to start looking at, they need to start putting a good cup run together now. They want to go far in the Champions League because I think if you're a Liverpool fan, if you said, look, if we can't win the Premier League, can we win the Champions League? That they had a great result against Real Madrid. They played really well, and they'd be disappointed not to come away with anything against Man City. But Man City again, Haaland, brilliant, dragging him into a title race again, and I think it's going to be a really, really exciting next few weeks in the Premier League. I'm so looking forward to it. There's a lot of games coming thick and fast. Get this international break out of the way. Get back to the Premier League. Get the festive period done, and then we'll see where we are.
Absolutely. Well, we do have an international break going on, but that doesn't mean we're going to disappear. We'll be on next week, and we're going to go through some of our highlights and low points of the season, and discuss where we thought we'd be as to actually where we are. And we're also going to touch on our league predictions. So before the season started, we put a little table together of where we thought everyone were going to finish. Highly controversial in some aspects of it, but we'll quickly touch on that next week. But in regards to this weekend, I think we've pretty much covered everything. We've seen Arsenal drop a couple of points. We've seen City exit themselves well back into a title race. Wolves continue. West Ham have turned the corner. Newcastle non-existent. So, yeah, if you like what we talk about and you want to get involved, please like, share, comment. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on anything that we do drop when it's either live or not, or if it's preload. But yeah, guys, thanks again for joining. Been a great show. Been a great chat tonight. So thank you both, and thank you guys for watching. Just make sure you join in. please interact. It helps us massively. So yeah, but yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next week. And again, Nathan, Phil, thank you very much. And I'll see you next week.
Guys, thank you.
Come
Cheers,
on,
guys. Thank you
England!
very
Woohoo!
much. Take care, guys.